Reese here with Bats and Connection. Got Nick joining us as usual, here to talk about our rod and reel arsenal. So to start off, we're going to work on our medium action bait casting rods. So Nick, what are your medium action rods?
Well, I'll start off with my topwater rod. It's a Skeet Reese jerkbait / topwater rod. I have it paired up with the Abu Garcia Aura SX and 12-pound Suffix monofilament. I like this rod because it's got really good tip action on it, so it gives the bait a good walking motion when you're throwing walking baits.
So my topwater rod is a Daiwa Team Pro 7-foot medium. Good action. It's really light, but then again, it's pretty heavy too. Before I didn't really know what I was doing with fishing, I would throw jigs in this rod, just pond hopping, and it handled them pretty good. I have a Revo S 6:4:1 gear ratio on there with 10-pound mono. It allows me to cast the bait forever, and it has that stretch. It also floats, so it keeps the bait up on top. It's a really good rod. It's my topwater rod.
I'm going to talk about my spinnerbait rod. It's also a Skeet Reese rod. I like these rods because I think they're really good rods for the money. And I have it matched up with a Speed Spool Lose M5B and 12-pound Sunline Red, FC Sniper. And I like this rod because it's light, but at the same time it's got some weight to it, where I can really throw the spinnerbaits far and into the wind. Also, I'll talk about my jerkbait rod. It's an Okuma Tournament Concept TCS, the Scott Martin ones, and it's the jerk / crankbait. And I like this rod because it's got a really comfortable grip, and it's got a really lot of action, but it gives the jerkbaits I throw a lot more movement to them. Once you give it the pop, you can also see the tip just keep shaking, and that's something I like to see. And I have it matched up with the Quantum Smoke, and I like this reel because it can throw them good, and it's good casting. It doesn't backlash on me much. And this is my jerkbait, so I like it a lot.
So mine is a Falcon Lowrider 6'6" medium action. I have that paired up with a Abu Garcia Revo S 6:4:1 gear ratio. I think this is 10-pound Cigar Red Label fluorocarbon. It casts the jerkbaits a pretty far distance. It's short, so I can twitch it really good without hitting the water. I can also make accurate casts with my jerkbaits. Has good action to it for what I like to see for jerkbait fishing. Really sensitive. I can see every movement with the rod tip and detect the slightest of bites. So there's my jerkbait rod.
Talk about my crankbait rod here. It's the Quantum Team KVD. I really do like this rod. It's really wide, and as you're going to notice by it, it seems like it's a lot heavier and bigger than a medium, but you can throw crankbait a long way with this thing, and it's got a lot of tip action to give the crankbait good movement. It's really good for deep dive crankbaits, but I use it for all my crankbaits. And the reel I use is the 13 Fishing Concept A, and throw it at a 5.3:1 gear ratio, because this low gear ratio for crankbaits, especially in the wintertime, helps you slow them down. And also there's a more higher torque ratio, so it's a lot easier on you to reel in a crankbait all day long versus the faster ones. And this rod my favorite thing about it is how far it can throw these baits. You can cover a lot of water with this.
So my crankbait setup is a Falcon Cara Reaction Series. It's the 7-foot composite cranker. I throw most of my crankbaits on this, from my deep divers to my DT10s and wiggle warts. I think it's a little bit too heavy for a square bill, and then I have that paired up with a Abu Garcia or a winch. That's a 5:4:1 gear ratio, and this is I believe it's 10-pound Sunline Reaction Series, if I'm correct. I had some problems with this rod when I first got it, just not being able to cast it far enough. But once I got this reel set up, put on it, and line figured out, I can cast them pretty pretty good distance. I love the Falcons. You can feel everything, especially with light crankbaits thrown in the wind. I can feel everything. There it is, guys. My crankbait rod.
Our last rod here's a St. Croix Premier, and this is mainly just my fishing rivers and ponds rod, just because it's short and easy to carry around, and being medium, it's got enough backbone to set the hook, but also not too much so I can't fish jerkbaits in top water. I got it matched up with the Quantum Team KVD. I like this one for this setup because it has 2 magnetic systems in it, so you can really tune it down to be able to throw really light baits or really heavy baits. It also has a flipping switch on it, so I can flip in the cover if I'm fishing in rivers. That's my just everything rod.
Alright guys, there you have it. There's our medium action bait casters. Coming up next is our medium heavy action bait casters.
This is my jig setup. It's the Garcia Veritas, the first edition, and I have it matched up with the Okuma Helios and with 15-pound Sunline FC Sniper line. And I like this rod just because it's very balanced, and I've used it for so long that I really have a feel for it, and it's got a lot of power in it. It's probably actually be more considered a heavy rod, but they market it as a medium heavy. And when I first started fishing, this is my first one I got, and after that I just tried to switch them around and buy more expensive stuff. I thought it'd be better, but I ended up coming back to this one because I quit catching fish with jigs. As I came back to this one, I started catching them again. So it's just what you're most comfortable with for jig fishing.
I have a Falcon Jason Christie, the 6'8" medium heavy rod. This, I throw everything on it really. I mainly throw shaky heads on this. I don't know, it's one of my favorite shaky head rods of all time. Sometimes I mix it up and throw square bills on here, or wiggle warts. I've also thrown top water on it, so it's just a good all-around rod. That's why I love it. I have it paired up with the Revo S from Abu Garcia, 6:4:1 gear ratio, and 12-pound Cigar Red Label fluorocarbon. So that gives me like that range of motion that I need for the most part. And if I'm throwing crankbaits or shaky head or whatever, but mainly it's shaky head on this rod.
Next one is my shaky head and Texas rig rod. It's the Duckett Ghost, and I have it matched up with a die with a Tula. And I really like this rod just because, first of all, it's really good for the money, and I like fishing, especially my Texas rigs, on it because I can feel everything. I can really detect a bite versus rocks or brush. And the Tatula, it can cast so far and it's so smooth and it's a really comfortable feeling reel. A lot of people say that it's oversized and it's not comfortable, but I haven't noticed that problem. I like the grips, a very easy, good grip. And this rod, it's just so good that I actually bought another one, which is my next rod. This is the same exact rod, and it also a dial with Tatula, but a Type HD. And in my opinion, the Type HD is not as good as the normal Tatula, also more expensive. But this setup right here, I throw wake baits and like heavier spinner baits. I've thrown jerk baits on these rods before. They'll throw anything, but those are things I like to stick to with it. And both these I have 15-pound Sunline FC Sniper.
For my pond or river rod, it's a Falcon Lowrider, the 6'4" medium heavy. Have that paired up with a Quantum PT KVD series. It's an older one. This is a 5.1:1 gear ratio reel. I don't really like it, to be honest. I'm more of a Revo guy, but it's pond fishing or river fishing, so it doesn't really matter in the end. I got the 5.1. So long day on the water at the river doesn't really wear you out as much, especially if you're throwing crankbaits or doing whatever, and you're not really making long casts, and you don't really need to get the fish to the kayak or boat or whatever you're fishing with quickly. So I just take my time, bite them. I don't want them to get unhooked. I've also thrown like popper, like a lighter top water on this rod, and some lighter spinner baits. It's just a good rod. It's short, accurate cast. You can't really get the distance, but you're throwing lighter gear, so you weren't going to get the distance in the first place. And it's just a good all-around rod, especially for pond and river fishing.
My last one is actually a backup rod, because the rod I ordered this reel and the rod at the same time, and the reel got here before the rod did. But this is a Jimmy Houston, the blue one, and I think it's like $40 at Walmart. And for that money, it's a pretty good rod. It's got a really nice, comfortable grip that you can hold all day, and it's a shorter rod, so again, it's easy to transport. And I have it matched up with the Shimano Corrado, the new one. And so far, I haven't had it that long, but it's really good. It can cast a mile, and it's smooth. I can really feel it's got some strength when there's a fish on. And the rod I ordered also is the number 8 tackle rod, the Blackout series. So I'm excited to get that in and give it a shot.
Alright guys, here's our heavy action bait casters. So start up, this is my jig rod. It's a Falcon Jason Christie, the 7'3" heavy action rod. I have that paired up with a Revo S. So the Swepco tournament, I'll have the video link in the description. I dropped it in the water, and it's kind of at the bottom of the lake right now. So I literally just got this rod like a week ago, and I've only used it once. I mean, that tells you how much I love this rod. It's just a great all-around rod. So I'm waiting to get the reel replaced. I'm just waiting for a better deal, to be honest. So I throw jigs on this rod. I Texas rig, if it's a bigger Texas rig. I've thrown big swim baits on it. Wobble heads. It's a good rod. It casts jigs a mile. Really sensitive. It's longer, so on the far end of a cast, you can still get a good hook set in them and get them out of the cover or whatever you're fishing. It's just a great rod. I have that usually paired up with the Revo SX 7.1 gear ratio, and it's usually 17 and 20 pound fluorocarbon depending on what I'm fishing with.
This is my Alabama rig rod. It's a Skeet Reese Alabama rig rod, and one thing I like about this rod is how it has a very long butt end here, and the hook keeper down here, so that way there's plenty of room for the Alabama rig to sit. And the reel is a US Reel Supercast. Only reason I still have this reel on here is because it has really strong gears, and when you're fishing Alabama rig and you get a good one on there, it's easy to strip the reels or strip the gears out of a reel. So I was just trying to avoid that.
Here's my final heavy bait casting rod and bait caster rod in general. It's a Falcon Buku 610 heavy action. I have it paired up with a Revo S, and I think this is 15 pound fluorocarbon. What I do with this rod is I throw underspins on it. I figured out this is a crazy good underspin rod. It casts these things a mile. You can feel everything. It's a really good underspin rod, so check that out. I also throw Texas rigs on this, good flipping and pitching, wobble heads, some lighter jigs. It's a really good rod, and it's great for underspins.
And my last one here is a PAL Inferno rod. I matched up with the Quantum Exo PT. And this is mostly, I throw biffle heads on this, just because they got bigger hooks on them, so I like to have a heavier action rod to be able to get those hooks in there. And it's so light. The rod and reel combo is so light. It's really nice, and it looks really nice too to begin with. And I've noticed that whenever I hook a fish with this rod, I have about a 90% in the boat rate with that. If I get the hooks up with this rod, they don't ever come off. And it can cast, and it's so sensitive. I can feel every pebble on the ground.
Alright guys, there it is. There's our bait casting rod and reel setup. Stay tuned for our spinning rod. Alright guys, here is our spinning rod and reel setup.
Start with my drop shot setup. I also throw Ned rigs with this, but it is a St. Croix Mojo Bass medium light power, and match up with the Fluger Patriarch reel. In my opinion, Fluger is by far the best spinning reel, and this is their top of the line one. It's 5 years old, and it feels like it's brand new. And it's been through a lot. I've taken it through rivers. I've dropped it in the river. I've dropped it in lakes. See, for my sinker on the drop shot, I like using the Rocky Brook sinkers. They're the ones made out of limestone because they give a good sound when they hit the rocks, a natural sound of like a crawdad swimming through the rocks. And also the shape that they have is an abnormal shape, so it's just like they get snagged in between rocks. And I throw with 8-pound Sunline FC Sniper line, which I feel like is very important on spinning reels. Big casters, I use the same line, but it's not as important as it is on a very finesse type setup. And that's my drop shot rig.
So for my everything rig, because this is my only spinning rod, I have a Falcon Original. It's a medium action. I don't know the model, how long it is. It doesn't really say on here. So I have the Quantum and Sight spinning reel. To be honest, the only reason I'm keeping it is because I still have this braided line on here that's really old. They quit making it. I don't know what company made it, but it is by far my favorite braided line ever. It's 10 pound, and so what I do is I have the 10-pound braid with like a 5 to 10 foot long fluorocarbon leader, usually 10, 8, 6 pound depending on water clarity. And so that way I don't have that fluorocarbon line twist that you get from fishing a spinning rod and reel. So what I throw on here is mainly drop shots, Ned rigs. I finesse it down sometimes to like a lighter shaky head or a secret bait that I'm not gonna say, but just a really light shaky head is basically what it is. The only bad thing I don't like about this is it's pretty short. So if you make a long cast, which you can really do with the spinning rod, you can't really get a good hook set. But I mean, I mainly use it for drop shots, so I'm not making those long casts, so it works out pretty good.
This is my, right now I have a shaky head on it, but it's not my normal shaky head rod. This one I throw my Carolina rigs, and sometimes I throw like a spook occasionally on this. It's just a rod that I can throw anything on. It's also a Mojo Bass St. Croix rod, but it's the medium power, 7 foot. And I matched up with the Lew's Tournament Speed Spool spinning reel. It's a really good reel, and my favorite part about it is the bail here is a very, very thick wire. So that way it's, because you get other reels, even expensive reels, they have thin wire and they're easy to break and bend, and then you have a serious problem. This is so thick you couldn't break this if you tried. I definitely like this reel, but again, I'll go with Fluger over this reel anytime. And it's just a really good, like a strong spinning rod setup. Not as much finesse, more power. That's it.
Alright guys, there you have it. Our 2016 rod and reel arsenal for the Bass and Connection. Reese here with Nick. We appreciate you watching this video. Stay tuned for the next one.